Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Hector Navarro, and is Kamala Khan now officially a mutant in the comics? We know the Marvel Cinematic Universe recategorized the character as a mutant in Ms. Marvel, but ahead of the character's return in The Marvels, they're definitely cooking something up by having Iman Vellani come over to write these comic storylines. I'm gonna break all of this down for you because what's happening with Ms. Marvel in the comics right now is potentially a bigger deal than anything happening in the movies and shows. Please subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network, this main channel, The Break Room, and The Deep Dive. Let's get started. So before bringing you up to speed on the current Kamala Khan comics condition, we've got to back up just a bit and refresh you on what's been happening to Ms. Marvel in Reality 616, namely her death. Yep, she died, sort of. Released at the end of May of this year in issue number 26 of the 6th volume of the long-running comic series restarted in 2022, The Amazing Spider-Man, fan-favorite character Kamala Khan died. You can read the entire 26-issue series to get all the specifics of how it went down, in case you want to read it on your own, but basically, Kamala dies the way most superheroes do, saving a life and saving the universe too. A villain from another dimension was after Mary Jane Watson and would destroy the universe if he were to murder her. And after an epic fight involving Spider-Man fending off the villain and the bad guy summoning a giant monster, a few more heroes were brought into the action. The Fantastic Four, a reformed Norman Osborn flying around as the Gold Goblin, and Ms. Marvel were all helping Spider-Man by dealing with the monster and trying to keep MJ safe from the villain. Kamala Khan had been interning at Oscorp for 6 months, probably keeping an eye on Osborn to see if he really was reformed or if he would return to his Green Goblin-y ways. As Ms. Marvel carried MJ away to safety, we see that they split up to try and lose the pursuing bad guy. And then the comic pulls a fake out, making us think the bad guy caught up to MJ and stabbed her through the chest. Only it wasn't MJ, it was Kamala Khan, using her shape-shifting abilities that she has in the comics, disguising herself as MJ and thwarting the villain's evil plan. Peter Parker had been building a closer friendship with Kamala since she started her internship at Oscorp, working for him since he also worked at Oscorp. Peter arrives on the scene as she's dying, and they reveal their superhero identities to one another. Kamala passes away in Spider-Man's arms, tragically, before finishing her famous inspirational catchphrase, "Good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you... What a gut punch of an ending. And that ending was leaked online 2 weeks early, which forced Marvel Comics to announce that Kamala was dying and that her heroic legacy would be celebrated in another comic called Fallen Friend, The Death of Ms. Marvel. The leak, coupled with the way the story unfolded, generated some controversy for comic readers, and I'm sure non-comic readers alike. I will say the art in The Amazing Spider-Man number 26 by the living legend John Romita Jr., my favorite comic book artist of all time, was fantastic. So after Ms. Marvel's death in May, we got a special celebration of the character in July with Fallen Friend, The Death of Ms. Marvel number 1, with some of the character's original creators coming back to contribute to it. G. Willow Wilson wrote a story, and Adrian Alfona gifted us with a beautiful variant cover. The issue features a few different story segments, starting with one showing us the supporting cast of Ms. Marvel comics, like her sister Nakia, her friends Bruno and Zoe, and her parents gathered in their mosque to remember the fallen superhero Ms. Marvel, as well as the innocent bystander lives lost in the recent tragedy, including Kamala Khan, who some don't know was secretly Ms. Marvel. Logan, aka Wolverine, appears and introduces himself to Kamala's father. Then Red Dagger, Kamala's potential love interest, shows up too, followed by Kamala's favorite hero, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. We also see the team of young heroes Ms. Marvel was a part of, the Champions, arriving to pay respects. Avengers like Captain America Sam Wilson, Iron Man Tony Stark, and Dr. Stephen Strange were all present. Steve Rogers, Captain America, asks Sheikh Abdullah for permission to say a few words. Finally, Peter Parker arrives late, because of course he does, because it's typical Parker lateness, just in time to introduce himself to Kamala's parents and tell them she was his hero. Close personal friend of Eric Voss, actor Iman Vellani, even popped into a comic store, Heroes World in Ontario, Canada, where she grew up and bought her first ever Ms. Marvel comic to pick up this Fallen Friend issue with that gorgeous Adrian Alfona cover. Phew! Now that I've caught you all up to Kamala's recent story, we can get into her upcoming rebirth and new series. Ms. Marvel, The New Mutant, is a 4-issue series launching next month in August, and Iman Vellani is going to be co-writing the series with Sabir Pirzada, who worked on the Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel shows, and who also wrote the Ms. Marvel limited comic series that was a part of the Dark Web event. In the comics, Inhumans are mutated human beings that have latent alien Kree DNA that gives them superhuman abilities. Some savvy comic book fans have been speculating that a change like this might occur to Kamala Khan, since the live-action adaptation established that Kamala was a mutant and not an Inhuman like she is in the comics universe. This is because Marvel probably doesn't want to throw off potential new readers too much if they decide to head to their local comic shop and check out their favorite Marvel hero. But have no fear, because if there's one thing we know about Iman Vellani, it's that she's a massive fan of the Marvel Comics universe, even to the point where she stands her ground against Kevin Feige and refers to the movie universe as Reality 199999 as opposed to 616, which Iman reserves for the original comic universe designation. We stan a nerdy queen. Heck, even Across the Spider-Verse's Miguel O'Hara agrees with her.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Editor and producer and co-creator of the character, Sana Amanat, also revealed at San Diego Comic-Con that Iman Vellani would just show up to set with a crazy book of ideas, and that she, quote, knows more than most people about Marvel Comics history. And we know that's true. It was Amanat's idea to have Vellani write a comic, and Iman was hesitant, asking, "Is anyone gonna let me?" And Sana was like, "Yeah." Sana Amanat also described the process, saying that Sabir Pirzada, who again worked in the writer's room of the Ms. Marvel show, shout out to writers, has really been guiding her through the process and helping her hone in on the millions of crazy ideas that she has. So, knowing that Iman is such a comics fan and knows the history of this character who debuted back in 2014, what did she have to say about her now being revealed as a mutant? Iman told Entertainment Weekly, quote, "I want to make it very, very clear that we are not retconning her Inhuman origin. That's a part of Kamala's identity that Marvel Editorial and myself would very much like to keep and protect. Our book will absolutely reflect all those core themes of identity that the Ms. Marvel comics have consistently explored. Only now, there's a whole new label that Kamala has to learn to accept. It's gonna be pretty crazy." Sana Amanat has talked about how it was always their original intention to make Ms. Marvel a mutant. And now she is, in addition to still being an Inhuman. And there, of course, have already been mutant-Inhuman hybrids in Marvel comics like Daisy Johnson, aka Quake, Luna Maximoff, the daughter of Mutant Quicksilver and Inhuman Crystal, and Lunella Lafayette, aka Moon Girl. But how is Kamala coming back to life? If you've been following X-Men comics for a few years, you may already know that our favorite mutants have basically mastered death itself by using their advanced technology and knowledge to create resurrection pods on the island nation of Krakoa, itself a sentient living being who is also a mutant. Anyone who is a mutant and is killed or dies can come back on Krakoa and live again. And it's made for some really interesting X-Men-centric stories. So we've learned that you can actually read Kamala's resurrection, confirming that she's a mutant as well as being an Inhuman, in X-Men Hellfire Gala 2023 #1, which kicks off the new storyline called Fall of X, out at the end of July. Now, there's already a bit of controversy with this Hellfire Gala comic with the way Kamala herself is depicted. Fans have pointed out that the art seems to show Kamala with a smaller, daintier nose, maybe a bit too far off from how she's normally depicted, and after her resurrection, which all mutant characters emerge from Krakoan eggs naked and then are given clothes, Kamala is wearing a robe and showing her skin, even though the character is Muslim and has been depicted as dressing more modestly. These sorts of details may get lost or forgotten when producing monthly comics, but fans have reminded everyone that it's these details that sets Kamala Khan apart from the majority of other superhero characters, and that it would benefit Marvel to check with Muslim writers and artists when portraying Kamala in any medium. Over the San Diego Comic-Con weekend, we got a little bit more information about the Ms. Marvel The New Mutant 4-issue limited series, including the full reveal of the covers for the first 3 issues. Carlos Gomez and Adam Gorham are going to be doing the art for the series, and Sarah Pichelli is going to be doing the main covers. Not only is Kamala back, but she's accepting a role as an X-Man and wearing a new X uniform designed by superstar artist Jamie McKelvey, who redesigned Carol Danvers' costume when she took on the mantle of Captain Marvel, and also Kamala's first iconic costume when she became Ms. Marvel. And Jamie McKelvey, the artist, who Iman Vellani is a huge fan of. In fact, co-writer Sabir Pirzada says working with Iman was, quote, actually a very humbling experience because she knows her comics even better than I do, and that is saying something. She was throwing out references to specific comics that came out before either of us were born. She has a very great eye for what makes a good sequence on the page as drawn by an artist. It was very impressive to me to see her throw out all these references to different artists that she's been following through the years. Now, this may be only a 4-issue series, but Marvel Comics fans are extremely excited and cheering for Iman Vellani to crush it. She said to Entertainment Weekly, "This was way scarier than joining the MCU for me. Those projects feel like they live in their own dimension, so I guess I can separate myself easier. But you can hold a comic book. I've never written anything before in my entire life, but I have read many comics, so I just wrote what I would want to read. I was given a very professional tool to write what is essentially my own fan fiction. It's so awesome to be able to contribute to the official Marvel Comics canon." Iman, I think you're a bit more qualified than you're giving yourself credit for, and I hope that you enjoy the process so much that you can come back and write more and more, eventually exhausting that crazy book of ideas. Now, it's not too common for a comic series to get its own trailer, so this must mean Marvel Comics is really happy with the final product. I think many comic fans already knew this, even after we learned about Kamala's death, but it looks like Ms. Marvel's future in the Marvel 616 is bright and beautiful. And if you haven't yet experienced the joy of reading Ms. Marvel comics, this new 4-issue series seems like the perfect jumping on point. But if you want to go back to the beginning, I can't recommend a better collection than Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan, which collects her first 11 issues and some extras. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to all 3 of our channels, check out the awesome Nerd Riot merch, and go pre-order Ms. Marvel the New Mutant at your local friendly comic book store today. See ya!